I was given 3 minutes to pack my belongings before my stepmother the COO presented my $90 million deal to the board as her own achievement. Instead of screaming, I smiled, stood up, and said, "Congratulations, Diana." Within 2 hours, 14 directors had resigned. By midnight, Diana's phone was ringing off the hook, but not with congratulations. Let me back up. My name is Rachel Chen, and 7 years ago, I walked into Sterling Financial Group as a junior associate with nothing but a finance degree and the unfortunate distinction of being the CEO's daughter. My father, James Chen, made it crystal clear from day one. I would get no special treatment. If anything, I'd have to work twice as hard to prove I wasn't just there because of my last name. I did exactly that. By 34, I'd climbed to VP of Strategic Partnerships. I'd closed deals that saved our clients hundreds of millions. I'd built relationships that other firms spent decades trying to cultivate. And through it all, I kept my head down and let my work speak for itself. Then my father remarried. Diana Westbrook became Diana Chen 2 years ago, a whirlwind romance that shocked everyone who knew my father. She was 52, impeccably dressed, Harvard MBA, with a resume that read like a Fortune 500 highlight reel. Within 6 months of their wedding, my father appointed her COO. Within a year, she'd restructured half the company. I won't lie, at first, I tried to like her. I really did. She was smart, sophisticated, and seemed genuinely interested in the business. But there were little things. The way she'd interrupt me in meetings. How my project updates would somehow get lost before reaching the executive team. The subtle comments about my age, my experience, my potential that always felt more like criticism than encouragement. But I had work to do. 3 months ago, I'd been in negotiations with Titanium Industries, a massive manufacturing conglomerate looking to restructure their entire investment portfolio. It was the kind of deal that could make or break a firm our size. $90 million. 3 countries. Hundreds of moving parts. I spent 12 weeks on it. 12 weeks of 18-hour days, red-eye flights, dinner meetings that lasted until 2 in the morning. I'd memorized every clause, every contingency, every stakeholder's concerns. Marcus Reed, our legal counsel, had helped me navigate the contract maze. Patricia Hayes, our CFO, had run the numbers so many times we both saw them in our sleep. On November 8th, at 4:47 p.m., I got the call. Titanium CEO, Robert Sterling, said yes. The deal was done. I remember sitting in my office, staring at my phone, barely believing it. Marcus was the first person I told. He'd whooped so loud that people 3 floors down probably heard him. Patricia came running with a bottle of champagne she'd been saving. We celebrated for exactly 20 minutes before I had to call my father. "Dad, it's done. Titanium signed." There was a pause. Then, "Well done, Rachel. The board will be thrilled. I'll schedule a presentation for Friday's meeting." Friday, November 10th. The quarterly board meeting where every major achievement got recognized, where bonuses were discussed, where careers were made or broken. I spent Thursday preparing my presentation. 43 slides, each one meticulously crafted. I wanted to make sure the board understood not just the numbers, but the strategy behind them. This wasn't just a deal, it was a blueprint for how Sterling Financial could compete with the big players. Friday morning, I arrived at the office at 6:30 a.m. The board meeting was scheduled for 9. I wore my navy suit, the one I'd bought specifically for important presentations. Lucky suit, I called it. I'd closed 3 major deals while wearing it. At 8:45, I was reviewing my notes one last time when my assistant, Jennifer, knocked on my door. She looked uncomfortable. "Rachel, there's been a change to the agenda." I looked up. "What kind of change?" "Diana COO Chen. She's presenting the Titanium deal." The words didn't register at first. I actually laughed. "That's got to be a mistake." "It's my presentation." Jennifer's face told me it wasn't a mistake. I grabbed my laptop and headed straight to the boardroom. The long mahogany table was already surrounded by 14 directors, all settling into their seats. My father sat at the head, reviewing papers. Diana stood beside the presentation screen, wearing a cream pantsuit that probably cost more than my car payment. My presentation pulled up on the monitor behind her. I walked directly to my father. "Dad, there's been some confusion. I'm presenting the Titanium deal." He didn't look up. "Diana will be presenting today. She's worked very hard on this. She's worked hard. Rachel. His voice was quiet but firm. We'll discuss this later. Please take your seat. I stood there, frozen, while 15 people watched. Diana smiled at me, that practiced, professional smile that never reached her eyes. Rachel did provide some valuable input during the negotiation phase. We're grateful for her contributions. I'd negotiated every single term. I'd been on planes to Chicago, Houston, and Toronto. I'd eaten more room service in 3 months than most people do in a year. And she'd turned it into contributions. Patricia Hayes, our CFO, caught my eye from across the table. She looked as shocked as I felt. Marcus, sitting near the door, was already pulling out his phone. I could have made a scene. Part of me wanted to. But my grandmother's voice echoed in my head, the same grandmother who'd built a business from nothing and taught me that grace under pressure was its own kind of power. So I smiled. I walked to the back of the room. I sat down in one of the observer chairs. And I watched Diana present my work. She was good, I'll give her that. She knew exactly which points to emphasize, which numbers would impress. She'd clearly memorized my slides. But there were tiny errors, details only someone who'd actually negotiated the contract would know. She said Titanium's CFO was named Richard when it was actually Robert. She mentioned 3 international divisions when there were actually 4. The board ate it up. They asked questions. Diana answered most of them smoothly, though I noticed her glancing at her notes more than someone who'd actually done the work would need to. When it ended, there was applause. Actual applause. My father stood and shook Diana's hand. Exceptional work, Diana. This is exactly the kind of strategic thinking that will take Sterling Financial to the next level. She beamed. Thank you, James. I couldn't have done it without our team's support. The meeting ended. Directors congratulated Diana as they filed out. A few nodded at me, looking vaguely uncomfortable. Most didn't acknowledge me at all. Patricia was the first to approach me in the hallway. Rachel, that was a masterclass in executive theft? I tried to keep my voice light, but it cracked. I need to talk to you. Not here. Lunch? I nodded. Marcus appeared next, looking furious. Did that actually just happen? Did she seriously just? Yep. Rachel, you need to go to HR. You need to document this. That's fraud. She's the COO, Marcus. She's married to the CEO. Who exactly am I going to complain to? He started to respond but stopped. We both knew the answer. I went back to my office and closed the door. For 10 minutes, I just sat there, staring at my computer screen. 7 years. 7 years of proving myself, of working harder than anyone else, of earning every single promotion. And in 45 minutes, Diana had erased it all. My phone buzzed. A text from Patricia. The Copper Bistro. 12:30. Don't be late. At 12:25, I walked into the Copper Bistro, a quiet restaurant 3 blocks from the office. Patricia was already there, sitting in a corner booth with her laptop open. She wasn't alone. Marcus was there. And so was Thomas Weber, our VP of Client Relations. And Jennifer Park, who ran our entire East Coast operations. And David Liu, head of risk assessment. What's going on? I asked. Patricia closed her laptop. Sit down, Rachel. I did. We need to talk about what happened this morning, Patricia said. And we need to talk about what's been happening for the past year. What do you mean? Thomas leaned forward. Diana's been systematically taking credit for other people's work. Not just yours. 3 months ago, I closed a deal with Meridian Tech. $15 million. At the executive briefing, Diana presented it as a collaborative effort she'd spearheaded. My name was mentioned once, in passing. Jennifer nodded. Same thing happened to me with the Portland expansion. I spent 6 months on that project. Diana gave a presentation to the board that made it sound like her strategy. She's been doing this since she became COO, David added. Small stuff at first. Taking credit for ideas in meetings. Revising reports to emphasize her contributions. But it's gotten worse. Marcus pulled out a folder. I started documenting everything 2 months ago when I noticed the pattern. Email chains that get mysteriously edited. Meeting notes that get revised, presentation slides that get their authorship changed. He slid the folder across the table. Inside were printouts, dozens of them. Email threads showing Diana's name replacing other people's names on documents. Revised meeting minutes that attributed ideas to her that had clearly come from someone else. A timeline that showed the escalation. This morning was just the most blatant example, Patricia said. She didn't even try to hide it. She took your entire presentation and presented it as her own work. What am I supposed to do? I asked. She's untouchable. She's married to my father. She's the COO. I don't even know if Dad knows what she's doing, or if he does and he just doesn't care. Patricia's expression hardened. Then we make him care. Over the next hour, we strategized. Patricia had been quietly investigating Diana's financial records, the ones that were supposed to be confidential but that a CFO has ways of accessing. There were irregularities, nothing overtly illegal, but enough unusual expenses and budget allocations that questions needed to be asked. Marcus had been building a legal case. If we could prove a pattern of credit theft and document the impact on people's careers and compensation, we might have grounds for something. He wasn't sure what yet, but something. Thomas, Jennifer, and David had been talking to other directors. Turns out, almost everyone had a Diana story. A project that got taken over. An idea that got stolen. A moment where they'd felt undermined and dismissed. We need to go to the board, Patricia said. Not to HR. Not to James. Directly to the board. They just gave her a standing ovation for stealing my work, I pointed out. Because they don't know she stole it. But if we present evidence, if we show them the pattern, they'll have to act. And if they don't? Patricia looked at each person at the table. Then we walk. The words hung in the air. You're serious, I said. Dead serious. Rachel, you're not the only one tired of watching mediocre people take credit for excellent work. We've all built our careers here. We all love this company. But if the board won't protect its talent, if they'll let someone rise to COO by stealing other people's achievements, then this isn't the sterling financial we signed up for. Marcus nodded. I'm in. One by one, the others agreed. We spent the weekend preparing. Patricia compiled financial reports. Marcus drafted legal documentation. I put together a comprehensive timeline of the titanium deal, complete with emails, call logs, travel receipts, and testimony from Robert Sterling himself, who was more than happy to confirm that he'd negotiated exclusively with me. By Sunday night, we had a 40-page report that laid out everything. Diana's pattern of credit theft, the impact on morale and retention, the potential legal liability, and most importantly, the evidence that she'd fraudulently represented herself as the architect of a $90 million deal. Monday morning, Patricia requested an emergency board session. As CFO, she had the authority to do so if she believed there were financial or legal issues that required immediate attention. The board convened at 2 p.m. My father looked annoyed. Patricia, this is highly irregular. What's so urgent that it couldn't wait until the quarterly meeting? Patricia stood. We have evidence of systemic fraud by a senior executive. The board needs to review it immediately. Diana, sitting next to my father, went very still. For the next 90 minutes, we presented our case. Patricia went first, laying out the financial irregularities. Marcus followed with the legal implications. Then I walked them through the titanium deal, every email, every phone call, every meeting. I even played a voicemail from Robert Sterling, congratulating me on closing the deal and saying he looked forward to working with me personally going forward. When I finished, the room was silent. Finally, Richard Morrison, the longest-serving board member, spoke. James, were you aware of any of this? My father looked like he'd aged 10 years in 90 minutes. Diana told me she'd been instrumental in the titanium negotiations. I had no reason to doubt. She told you she'd been instrumental, Marcus interrupted. Did she tell you Rachel had spent 12 weeks in 4 cities negotiating every single term? Did she tell you that Robert Sterling has never even spoken to Diana? My father didn't answer. Diana tried to defend herself. She claimed she'd provided strategic oversight. She said the documentation was incomplete. She suggested that I was bitter about not getting enough recognition and was exaggerating my role. Patricia shut that down with a single sentence. Diana, would you like me to pull up the email where you asked me to change the client contact list to show you as the primary contact on titanium, backdated to September? Diana's face went pale. Richard Morrison stood up. I've heard enough. James. I'm calling for a vote of no confidence in COO Chen. Richard, let's not be hasty. Hasty? James, she committed fraud. She stole credit for a $90 million deal. She's been systematically undermining your actual top talent. And you? He paused. You either knew and allowed it, or you were too blind to see it. Either way, this board needs to act. The vote was 13-1. My father was the only vote against. Diana was terminated effective immediately. Security escorted her from the building. I watched from my office window as she left, carrying a small box, her face a mask of fury. My father requested a private meeting with me. We sat in his office, the same office where I'd played as a child, where he taught me to read financial reports, where I'd signed my first employment contract. Rachel, I don't know what to say. I waited. I should have seen it. I should have protected you. I should have. You should have believed me, I said quietly. When I tried to tell you that something was wrong, you shut me down. When she presented my work, you congratulated her. You're my father, Dad. Before you're the CEO, before you're Diana's husband, you're supposed to be my father. He looked older than I'd ever seen him. I failed you. Yes, you did. I'll make it right. VP isn't enough. I want you to take Diana's position, COO. You've earned it. I shook my head. I can't do that, Rachel. I can't work here anymore, Dad. Every time I walk into a meeting, people will wonder if I'm there because I earned it or because I'm your daughter. Every success will be questioned. Every failure will be magnified. Diana poisoned this well. And you. I swallowed hard. You let her. So that's it? You're leaving? I'm starting over. Somewhere where my last name doesn't matter. Somewhere where my work speaks for itself. I stood up to leave. He stopped me with a question. Where will you go? I don't know yet, but wherever it is, I'll build it myself. That night, I got a call from Patricia. Rachel, I need to tell you something. I've resigned. As of today. Patricia, you didn't have to. I'm not done. Marcus resigned. So did Thomas, Jennifer, and David. And Richard Morrison just called me. He's resigning from the board. So are 9 others. Rachel. She paused. 14 people are walking away from Sterling Financial. And they all want to know if you're interested in starting something new. I sat down on my apartment floor, phone pressed to my ear. Are you serious? Rachel, you're the best strategist I've ever worked with. You have client relationships that most firms would kill for. You have integrity. And you have the respect of everyone who actually matters. So yes, I'm serious. We all are. Starting a firm from scratch is. It's risky. Everything worth doing is. I thought about my grandmother. About the business she'd built from nothing. About the advice she'd given me before she died. Success isn't about never failing, Rachel. It's about having the courage to try again when you do. Okay, I said. Let's do it. We called it Pinnacle Strategic. 10 of us pooled our savings, not a lot, but enough to lease office space and hire support staff. Patricia mortgaged her house to cover our first quarter operating costs. Marcus worked for equity instead of salary until we were profitable. We weren't Sterling Financial. We didn't have the name recognition or the fancy offices. But we had something better. A team of people who trusted each other completely. Robert Sterling was our first client. He moved the entire titanium account to Pinnacle, saying he'd rather work with people who valued integrity over appearances. 3 other clients followed. Within 6 months, we'd closed $130 million in deals. Within a year, we had 15 clients and 20 employees. Within 18 months, Pinnacle Strategic was profitable, growing, and starting to show up on industry radar. Sterling Financial, meanwhile, was struggling. The mass exodus of senior talent had left gaps that couldn't be filled quickly. Clients started asking questions. Why had so many directors left? What was going on with leadership? My father tried to rebuild. He hired consultants, brought in new executives, attempted to repair the damage. But reputation is fragile, and trust is hard to rebuild. I heard through industry contacts that he and Diana had divorced, that he'd stepped down as CEO, that he was trying to sell the company. Part of me felt bad. But a larger part remembered sitting in that boardroom, watching him stay silent while Diana stole my work. In December, 14 months after that disastrous board meeting, I got a call from an unknown number. Rachel? It's your father. I almost hung up. I won't take much of your time. I wanted you to know that I'm proud of you. Pinnacle Strategic is impressive. You've built something real. Something honest. Thank you, I said carefully. I also wanted to apologize. Properly. Not as your former boss, but as your father. I chose my pride over your truth. I chose comfort over justice. And I lost the best thing in my life because of it. I didn't know what to say. I'm not asking for forgiveness, he continued. I know I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know that I see what you've built, and I see who you've become, and I'm sorry I wasn't there to support you when you needed it most. We talked for 20 minutes. It wasn't a reconciliation, not yet, maybe not ever. But it was a start. Today, Pinnacle Strategic has offices in 3 cities. We're closing in on $500 million in managed assets. Patricia is CEO, I'm Chief Strategy Officer, and Marcus is our General Counsel. The 14 people who walked out of Sterling Financial that night are all here, all thriving. Sometimes, I still think about that board meeting. About standing in the back of the room, watching Diana take credit for my work. About the choice I faced, accept it, fight it, or walk away and build something better. I chose the third option. And I've never looked back, because here's what I learned: your talent doesn't belong to anyone else. Your achievements can't be stolen unless you let them be. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is walk away from people who don't value you and build something with people who do. The deal Diana presented that day. It was worth $90 million. But the company we built afterwards. That's priceless. And every single person who was in that boardroom, the ones who gave Diana a standing ovation for work she didn't do, they know it too. They see Pinnacle Strategic's growth. They read about our acquisitions in industry publications. They watch their former directors thrive somewhere else. I like to think that on quiet nights my father thinks about it too. About the moment he chose wrong. About the daughter he lost. About the company he could have built if he'd valued talent over appearances. But mostly, I don't think about Sterling Financial at all anymore. I'm too busy building the future. And that future? It's bright, it's honest, and it belongs to us.